Hey, everybody. So I am interested in attempting to tell a kind of epic, an epic story. And I think I've come up with a way to do it. I think what I'm going to do is break it up into pieces. They might not all be the same size, but if I break them up into little pieces, I think it's manageable. I think. So in '82, I had just finished my first year of college, and it hadn't exactly gone according to plan. I'm going to leave it there. And not that I was running away, but I had decided that I was going to go to Anchorage, Alaska, and stay with my then probably year sober uncle. Yeah. Um, by the way, I lived in Southeast Ohio. And by the way, I was interested in doing it on a 10-year-old 1972 Honda CB350 that was well used. I had $170 in my pocket. I remember that. Um, I think that my dad gave me $100 of that. I was wearing um, long johns, jeans, boots, lace-up boots, and plastic pants over the top of my jeans, and then a t-shirt, a wool sweater, a kind of flannel jacket, and the plastic top that went with the that went with the rain gear. So I looked like a plastic Michelin man, and I had all kinds of camping gear sort of bungeed to the back as one does. I remember leaving the house on June 10th. And I remember driving up through southern Utah to Logan, Ohio, and then Lancaster, and then Columbus, and then Bowling Green, and then Toledo, and hopping across the border into Michigan. And I stayed my first night at my grandparents' home in Livonia, Michigan. At this point, I need to stop and say how much I owe to both my parents and my grandparents, who certainly must have understood how crazy such a thing was, but did not stop me. I remember leaving Livonia in the morning with my grandparents waving goodbye to me. I remember that my grandma had made sandwiches for me. And I went up through the lower peninsula of Michigan all the way to the Mackinac Bridge, which is a giant, giant engineering feat that spans the water that connects Lake Michigan to Lake Huron, and connects the lower peninsula of Michigan to the upper peninsula of Michigan. That's quite the bridge, especially for a Honda CB350. Made worse by the fact that there are grates, open grates, all the way so that you can see all the way down to the water as you pass over them. To say nothing of the fact that as you're riding, the bike goes I passed over the bridge, and there was a parking lot, I remember. Oh, I've got an airplane going over me. Sorry about that. There was a parking lot, and I went off onto the parking lot so that I could take a look at what I'd just done. It's an absolutely gorgeous bridge. And there in the parking lot, there was a pasty hut. And I had pasties for the first time. And then, not very far away from there, I found some place to camp. So my first camping on the trip up there was on the shores of the northernmost part of Lake Michigan. The second day, I made it up to Route 2, which, by the way, goes all the way across to Seattle. More on that later. And I made it all the way around to Thunder Bay, give or take, which is maybe 50 miles short of Duluth. And then on the third day, the nice weather quit. And we're getting closer to the meat of this part of the story. So I woke up and piled everything on and started on my way. And by the time I made it to Duluth, which again wasn't too far away, somewhere between 50 and 60 miles away, I'm thinking, I'm not sure. It was raining full on. It was the most miserable, cold, gray rain. And about 30 miles the other side of Duluth, Route 2 goes down to a little tiny road. Just really a car in one direction, or excuse me, a 2-lane road through the forest. So it's raining like crazy. And here I am on this road, driving probably 50-ish miles an hour, I'm going to guess. And all of a sudden, the back tire just stopped rotating. I mean, it locked. And immediately I stood up and my boots began to kind of hydroplane on the road. The motorcycle kept pulling me forward, and it was bouncing underneath my ass as we're going down the road. And somehow, I kept standing all the way down until we were completely stopped. And here I am, standing on the motorcycle, or standing on the ground with the motorcycle still upright under me. And I'm like, oh. So I find a way to get the motorcycle off the road. And a very quick inspection was easy to understand what the hell happened. There's a flat metal bar that holds the cylinder, the brake cylinder, from going around. The brake cylinder itself is supposed or designed to not spin with the tire, not spin with the wheel, okay? But if you take this bar off, if the pin falls out, the brake cylinder is free to begin to just go around with the wheel, except that there's a little, like, coat hook size metal bar that is the actuator for the brake itself. It's the thing that's attached to your right foot or underneath your right foot. When you press down on that, it pushes a little metal bar. It's real thin. It's still attached, okay? And what had happened was the holder bar had fallen off and the cylinder had gone around one revolution until the brake began clamping. And that was all she wrote. So I walked down in the rain and found the little castle nut and found the bolt. I put those back on there, bent the brake actuator back into place, stuck it back on there, and away I went. So that was adventure number one. So that day, that was probably 2 p.m, give or take. So it did not quit raining. I mean, it just kept raining. And I was, so one has to understand, $170 to get from Southeast Ohio up to Anchorage, Alaska. It's 3,300 miles. Gas cost $1.20. Basically, everything that I had to go into the gas tank. There was no money to stay in campgrounds. Okay, there really wasn't enough money for food. In fact, I ended up eating canned peaches, man. Canned peaches. I ate canned peaches for like 3 weeks straight. Anyway, all of that is to say that I was looking for a campground to stay in or some place that I could stay in, but it's raining like crazy, and my brain is practically frozen, okay? And I had gotten all the way to the point where it was now dark, all right? So, I mean, it doesn't get dark in the summer until like 9:30, even 10 o'clock. So I had gone way past my abilities. I was now in the danger zone, all right? And I pull into the town called Bemidji, Minnesota. I remember on the outskirts of town there is a statue of Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox. And somehow I got it in my head, wow, I definitely need to dry out my sleeping bag. So I went into this well-lit, is there anything more mind-bendingly whatever than going into an old-fashioned laundromat late at night, okay? And I threw my sleeping bag and basically everything that I could into a dryer, and stayed there warming up under the fluorescent lights of this god-awful place in Bemidji, Minnesota. When it was all done, I threw everything back on the back of the motorcycle, and by that time it had actually eased up in terms of rain, a little tiny bit. But now it was, I don't know, I'm going to say that it was 10:30 at night, give or take, maybe even a little bit later than that. And I'm driving through Bemidji, Minnesota, thinking, where in the hell am I going to sleep? And man, I was exhausted. I was shot through and through. And I'm driving through this neighborhood, and I see a Catholic church, and it occurs to me, my addled brain, oh, I could go sleep in the Catholic church. Nobody will know, man. Nobody will know. I'll sleep in the Catholic church. So I park my bike well down the road, and I get into this Catholic church, and in the sanctuary, where all the pews are up front, there are these votive candles that have been lit. Okay, that was probably hint number one that I did not pay attention to. But in the back there were these kind of like rooms, and I remember there was a room with a great big glass surface that you could look out on the pews out there. And I thought, oh man, I'll I'll lay down here in this little room down here and I'll go to sleep. And I did. I went to sleep. I don't know how much later it was. Probably not that much later. Probably an hour to an hour and a half later. The priest comes in and he rouses me. He says, "You can't sleep here. You can't sleep here. Get out of here. Get out of here. You can't sleep here." So, now I'm back on the bike. And I don't know. Is it midnight? Something midnight, 1 o'clock maybe. I'm not sure. And I'm beyond. I'm totally beyond. So I'm like, all right. I got to do this. So I found a KOA on the western edge of Bemidji. I found a KOA. But the problem with KOAs is you got to pay, all right? Even back then, I think it was probably $10, $12 maybe to set up a tent, Of course, they've got showers in the morning. They probably even have a pool for all I know. So I go in, I sneak into the KOA, and I set up my tent, all right? I'm in my tent, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this. Except that now I'm hungry, okay? I haven't eaten, all right? So I break out. I think I had some peanut butter, and I think I had the peaches. So I'm eating peanut butter and peaches until finally I'm sated, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to sleep now. At some point in the morning, I hear this on the edge of the tent. And I'm immediately like, oh shit. I grab everything that I own and that's still in the tent, and I throw it out the door of the tent thinking that the rustling or whatever will make whatever it is go away. I think maybe that was God getting back at me, man. Yeah, jeez. So now I'm totally up, and I'm like, I got to get out of here before somebody catches me. So I quickly load everything up, and now I'm back on the highway. That is the first of what I will call my the first installment. The first installment of my trip up to Alaska. I should probably say something about the trip as a whole. But I think that there are things that we do that are too big. How do you make a story out of something? I don't know. How do you make a story out of something like that? But I'm going to try. Because I think that there are 3 more adventures, 3 more parts of the puzzle before I finally made it up to Anchorage. Anyway, thanks for listening. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.